Up next, rhinos working alongside Dems to protect the Mueller witch hunt and subvert President Trump. We take it up with Congressman Jim Jordan when we continue. Stay with us. President Trump sitting down today with embattled Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. The meeting comes amid speculation that Rosenstein's conflicts, such obvious conflicts throughout the Mueller investigation, may well lead to the president firing him. The White House said they discuss routine Justice Department business, period. Joining us tonight is Congressman Jim Jordan. He serves as a member of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees, a member of the influential House Freedom Caucus, one of the most prominent Republicans on Capitol Hill. Great to have you with us, Congressman.
Good to be with you.
The meeting with the president, we take them at their word that it was normal business. You have called for a second special counsel. You have called for an accounting for the Department of Justice and the FBI. Your thoughts about the meeting and the prospects for Rosenstein?
Yeah, I mean, well, here's what we know about Mr. Rosenstein. He signed one of the FISA applications. You know, when they took the dossier, dressed it all up like it was legitimate intelligence, took it to the FISA court to get a warrant to spy on Mr. Page associated with the Trump campaign, didn't tell the court who paid for it, didn't tell the court that the author of the document, Christopher Steele, had had his relationship with the FBI terminated. So Rosenstein was involved in that process. Plus, Rod Rosenstein, as you know, wrote the letter outlining why James Comey should be fired. Now he's overseeing an investigation where potentially there's obstruction of justice in the Comey firing. How does that work? I mean, I don't think there's obstruction of justice, but you wonder how that works. So I think Mr. Rosenstein has a ton of problems, not to mention the basic one, which is, when are you going to get us the information we're entitled to and get it to us in an unredacted form and in a timely fashion? So there's a host of problems with Mr. Rosenstein. I think everyone understands that.
And the committees, the House Intelligence Committee, the Oversight Committee, upon which you as well sit, I have been looking for those documents, have been demanding those documents.
Yeah.
Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, he and Trey Gowdy got a look at the so-called electronic communication that was the foundation of the call for a special counsel. And yet there's no responsiveness on part of DOJ to FBI to the two committees' requests.
Yeah, so here's how bad it is. We met with Mr. Lausch, who I think is a good guy. This is the point person that Mr. Sessions is named to give documents to Congress that we're entitled to get. So it was Mr. Lausch and a few other attorneys, and they met with Mr. Meadows and I asked him 4 simple questions. I said, tell us the approximate number of documents we're entitled to. Their answer was, I don't know. I said, tell us the standard used to determine what gets redacted and what doesn't. I don't know. Tell us the number of steps in the current process. How many people does it have to go through before we, the Congress, a separate and equal branch of government, get the information, again, we're entitled to get answers to the American people? They said, I don't know. And then the third question, of course, is the big one. When are we going to get the information we're supposed to have? And, of course, to that one, they said, we don't know. So my attitude is, look, you got a few days, not weeks or months, to clean this up. You got a few days to get this right and start getting us what we need to get answers for you, for people in the journalism world, but more importantly for the American people.
And now the American people are looking at very simple, if we can, you mentioned the conflicts of Rod Rosenstein. Let's put that in a sequential perspective, if we could put up that full screen, please. Rosenstein convinces Attorney General Sessions to recuse himself.
Yep.
He calls for President Trump to fire James Comey, which he does.
Right, writes the memo, yep.
Rosenstein names special counsel to investigate Trump's firing of Comey.
Yes, yes.
What possible sense, even on, if I may say, even on Capitol Hill, what possible sense does that journey
and I would
make?
argue, and I would argue there's one more step. Rod Rosenstein is involved in the raid that just took place. He signs off on the raid that took place of Mr. Cohen, both at his residence and at his business. Now, again, this is the thing I think most Americans look at. When Cheryl Mills was asked to give information regarding the investigation into Secretary Clinton's use of the private email and classified information traveling across her private server, when she was asked, it was, Cheryl, we're giving you a great immunity deal. What time do you want us to come over? And never forget, Lou, they got to decide. Secretary Clinton, David Kendall, Cheryl Mills got to decide on the front end which emails were personal in their definition and which ones went back to the government and ultimately to the Benghazi committee. What a contrast, what a double standard, and more than anything, that is what drives Americans crazy. This idea that there are two standards in this country, there aren't supposed to be. It's supposed to be equal treatment under the law.
And we have certainly seen established in the nation's capital that that is far from the case. Let's turn, if we can, very quickly to Paul Ryan's resignation and his intent, apparently, to be Speaker on a part-time lame duck basis. That's not sitting well with a lot of people on Capitol Hill and the House, I mean. How does it sit with you?
I mean, look, I appreciate Paul's service to the country, 20 years. He said he's not going to run for re-election, but he's still the Speaker of the House, and he should, you know, while he's there as Speaker of the House, fulfill his duties. The most important thing to me is not who the Speaker is, but what the Speaker does. The most important thing is not who the Speaker is going to be next year, but what Republicans are going to do this year. And what we need to do is get refocused on what the American people sent us here to do, not do what we did 3 weeks ago and pass this omnibus spending bill that was 2,232 pages that we got 15 hours before we voted on it, where we had 1 hour of debate and spent $1.3 trillion on things we said we wouldn't fund and then didn't spend money on things we said we would fund, like the border security wall. That's what's got to change. And so, to me, it's more important about what we do than it is who might be the Speaker of the House.
But the two seem to be related, since the Speaker of the House, who is the one who insisted that there be no amendments, no hearings, and that it be pushed through in the dead of night. So it does turn out to be relevant who the Speaker is. Process
has to change around this place in a dramatic way. The policy has to change. I mean, the process is, so many members, I think, feel left out of this thing. But certainly that omnibus spending bill we did, and the idea that we spent only 1 hour debating a bill that's 2,232 pages long, that spends over $1 trillion and leads to one of the biggest deficits we've seen in a number of years. That is so wrong. The process has to change in a dramatic fashion as well.
And I infer from that possibly the Speaker as well. I know you didn't say that, but that's just my inference. Congressman Jim Jordan, good to have you with us. Appreciate it.
You bet, Lou. Take care.
You too. Up next, James Comey. Well, he's got a book. We'll tell you about some of it. Chris Farrell of Judicial Watch is here, and we'll also examine what's up with the deep state and all of its little minions. Former FBI Director James Comey is divulging details about a private conversation he allegedly had with Chief of Staff John Kelly last year, shortly after President Trump fired Comey. Comey claims in his new book that Kelly called President Trump, quote unquote, dishonorable for firing Comey. But Comey apparently sees no issue with violating John Kelly's confidence and then talking about honor at all, if any part of that is true. Joining us now, Chris Farrell, Director of Investigations and Research for Judicial Watch. Chris, good to see you. This book, I mean, it's stunning. He goes after John Kelly, who was trying apparently to commiserate with him. What does he know about honor?
Nothing. And like I've been saying for literally years now, even when Comey was terribly, terribly popular, he was supposed to be Mr. Integrity, I have long been saying that Comey is utterly without integrity, and whatever he's written is going to be some self-serving drivel about what a genius he is. You know, the news alert will be on the third day after he passes away. He's in for a rude surprise. You know, this interview that he's going to be doing later this weekend, you know, fine, Mr. Comey, have at it. You know, keep writing and keep talking. I think it's Napoleon who said, never interrupt an opponent when they're in the middle of a mistake. So go for it. Vent your spleen, show everybody how smart you are, and we'll see who laughs last.
Let's turn to the meeting today at the White House. Rosenstein and the President, Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General. I'd like to just put up on the full screen the sequence that fascinates me as to why there should be any question at all about firing Rod Rosenstein and why there's been any to date. Could we Get that up, please. Rosenstein convinces on March 2nd of last year Jeff Sessions to recuse himself from the investigation. Rosenstein calls for Trump to fire Comey on May 9th, 2017. And then Rosenstein names a special counsel to investigate Trump's firing of Comey. Can you tell me how in the world any of that makes any sense legally, logically, rationally, and why in the world a special counsel would be permitted to be called, given that the person calling for it is the guy who laid the basis, the premise for his firing?
He's been conflicted and disqualified for months, and everything
from the beginning.
Everything that you had up on that screen, that list, and frankly, there's other additional sort of lesser conflicts and other sort of weird happenstance, but those are the main kind of bullet points. How he still is allowed into the Department of Justice every day is a head scratcher. How people that he is interacting with on a day-to-day basis, they're all sort of whistling past the graveyard as though nothing's wrong. They know these conflicts exist. I don't know how they can pretend that, you know, it's all the normal order of business over there. It's not.
So that being the case, why is there any hesitation on the part of Attorney General Sessions to fire Rosenstein? Why is there any hesitation on the part of the leadership of the Republican Party? And I'm talking about Ryan, I'm talking about McConnell, to stand up and say this is fundamentally a farce. And it is illegal, it is unconstitutional, it is irrational, and against the interest of the United States to subvert a president on these bases. It's madness.
In the end, President Trump will have to make a decision. It'll be a tough one, but he's going to have to lead because Mr. Sessions has neutralized himself or been neutralized, and the other so-called leadership you mentioned. Look, they're happy to see this all happen.
Of course. They
love this. They love the turmoil and the ambiguity of who's doing what to who, because it further emboldens them, frankly.
It emboldens them, and it also makes them look like the smallest people to ever hold their offices on Capitol Hill. Judicial Watch suing the Justice and State Departments, we understand, to force the release of documents on the Obama-era Uranium One scandal. How goes it?
Well, my colleague Irene Garcia in January 2008 broke the story about Clinton and Bill Clinton and Justra. We've been covering this for 10 years. We first sued over Uranium One in 2015. So this is old news to us, and we're going to keep hammering away at it to get all the records and documents really to fill out the picture. Because so far, you know, guess who was in charge at DOJ and FBI when it came to the Uranium One investigation? It was McCABE at the FBI, and it was Rosenstein at DOJ. And surprise, surprise, the investigation went nowhere. Well, we're not going to let that happen. We're going to continue to pursue it through our own means, legally, in the courts, and we're going to get all the documentation, and eventually, again, we're 10 years into this, we'll lay it all out for the American public.
Chris, thanks for being with us, and good luck, as always. Chris Farrell, Judicial Watch. Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. The question, do you think the globalists will ever accept President Trump's commitment to hardworking Americans and our middle class, not the elite's free trade, open border agenda? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Up next, new evidence that border security is more important than ever as cartel violence surges across the border with Mexico. We'll have a full report for you when we continue. We'll be right back.